Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. We're here at the University Club in the University of Western Australian campus. And I've got West Cobar Metals here with us today. Code is WC1. And I've got Matt Szwedzicki here with us, who's the Managing Director. Currently the market cap is floating around 7 million and share price is about 7.2 cents. So West Cobar was last on our platform about a month ago. Obviously, a few things have happened. A few significant news have come out. So, Matt, you've been a busy man over the month.
Yeah, absolutely, Noel. Yeah, thanks for having me. Certainly been a busy month. Lots of news flow that we've managed to generate, and hit some good milestones. So, I think we're heading the right way. Probably not quite getting the share price action that we would have liked, but
Join the club.
Yeah, I think that's we're seeing that our peers are in the same sort of boat. So I just think we just put our heads down, do the right, progress the company in the right way, and I think eventually the macro will work for us.
Well, I mean, your resource quadrupling is probably a consideration of going the right way. I think that was quite a significant upgrade in your resource. 190 million tons at 1,172 ppm trio. Run us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very, very pleased with that result. Newmont was where we had our original deposit when our original resource when we acquired the project. And so we concentrated on Newmont, and we did some infill drilling and some extensional drilling, and we got the Newmont number up from 44 million tons to 83 million tons. But importantly, 39 million tons of that is indicated. So to me, that's a really key part of the success story of Newmont. We've now got a higher confidence in that indicated tonnage, which is 39 million tons, and still, 1,200 ppm, 1,216 ppm. So maintaining a high grade and a very good indicated tonnage for Newmont. What we also did was had a look at O'Connor, and O'Connor was basically a prospect. So we did some more drilling around there, and found great intercepts, great grades, and put an inferred resource around that drilling, and that's coming at 107 million tons at, again, 1,200 ppm. So in total across Newmont and O'Connor, we're at 190 million tons at 1172 ppm, which I think puts us right at the forefront of sort of the resource in the rare earth in Oz, and we're very excited by that result. So I guess for me, we wanted to increase Newmont resource. We did that. We upgraded a good portion of those tons to indicated. We put a maiden resource on O'Connor, and we've maintained the high grade and the magnet rare earth component. So, they were kind of the key objectives for the whole process, and we ticked them off. So very happy with that result.
I mean, I remember when I looked at resource, I mean, one of the things that you've highlighted, obviously, is going to 39 million tons indicated. That's almost, if you don't look at the increase in total amount, that's almost automatic from what you had inferred in numbers.
Correct.
To indicate, which I think it's not a small thing, right? It's because once you get to that level, you're almost going to carry that number across. And obviously, once you get the reserves and things like that, it may differ, but it's a good indication that the confidence from the resource. When you guys see that, do you think that, I mean, the geology is open, obviously, you might get more, but do you feel like that's going to translate to the other numbers inferred as well?
I think we've certainly got good indications, everywhere. Newmont geologically is behaving the way we'd expect it to. So, we're quite confident that we can build on that indicated number as we go forward, and Newmont's open in several directions as well. So we'll add inferred, we'll add indicated, but it really comes to a point of, what does the number need to be? We're sort of at a point where 39 million tons indicated is quite a big number. So, maybe what we need to do is, rather than add more tons, we need to focus on progressing the technicals of the project, and look at ultimately what's the development pathway for this. So I think it's a good spot we're in, where we know we can get more tons, we can add to the indicated and the inferred, but we're probably at a stage we want to see how we're going to commercialize this thing.
Yeah, where the buck's going to come from.
Where the bucks, how the bucks are going to be generated. There's, I guess if you look at it, those sort of tonnage numbers, that's a lot of value in situ, right? That's a lot of dollars in situ. So it really comes back to what is the development look like? Is it a smaller development? Is it a phased development? Is it a bigger development? All those kind of things we're starting to think about.
And I guess, where that value, where the buck's going to come from. And, you mentioned that there's a high proportion of MREO from your studies. Can you give us some visibility on what that can mean for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a nice split between the lights and the heavies. So, everyone sort of talks about NdPr and dysprosium and terbium. On our geology, we're finding we're about probably half the basket price is coming from the heavies, so dysprosium and terbium. So even though, it's a much smaller percentage-wise in terms of proportion, overall the contribution to the revenue side is quite significant. So we're, with the heavies being, roughly half of the basket price, that puts us a little bit distinct to other players, certainly in the area and around Oz. And I think what's also interesting is that thematic of the heavies. So the dysprosium and terbium are forecast to be in drastic supply shortfall in the coming years. So I think rare earths in general has a very good supply sort of fundamental outlook in terms of shortfall of supply. So you want to produce it, but I think the dysprosium and terbium in particular has got a very significant shortfall forecast.
I mean, I guess coming back, and if you think about the market itself, the rare earth market, obviously the price depressed and everything else, and we know there's control coming out of China, but China's not going fantastically well economically anyway, so it's kind of natural progression that everything slows down. But on the upside is that these kind of things don't take months to do, right? It takes years, and the average mining project takes years to decades to get to the end stage, but definitely years to see the real value, I guess.
Correct.
So when you look at that, I guess your conversation about is 100 million tons the sweet spot, or 30 million tons will do?
Yeah.
What is the market telling you? I mean, the guys out there that's supplying the funding and things like that. What's their thoughts?
I think in general, we're getting feedback that we've got sufficient tons. We're right at the forefront of listed, certainly rare earth clay players in terms of tons. So it's more now the question is, can you commercialize those tons? I think that's what the market is effectively saying to us. And we're working through that. There's a number of steps to go through with the network and some beneficiation studies, and then you start talking about what sort of scale of development are we looking at. So there's quite a bit of work to be done there, but fundamentally we know we've got a lot of value in the ground. We know it leaches, it responds well to the leaching, so we got a good base to work off. And I think on the market cap we're currently at, it's certainly a lot of leverage to proving that it works commercially for us. Yeah.
And I guess the other news that you have is you guys made a release saying that the presence of gallium and then the market restriction that China was imposing could make this a valuable byproduct, because from what I can see, Salazar's secret, or the dark horse part of could be those byproducts that you have, because you got your scandiums, you got your HPA concept. Tell us about that release.
Yeah, so the gallium one was interesting because we were looking through the co-product story for Newmont in particular, and it's basically, we've got a lot of optionality there. We've got some high value minerals, so we know we've got HPA, we know we've got scandium, we know we've got titanium, and all these things are in very good grades and concentrations. We had a look through the historical drilling, and we found only a handful of holes had been assayed for gallium, but they showed really good gallium results. So that was around the time when there was news about the export restrictions coming out of China. So if China, being the main producer of gallium, is putting export restrictions in, there was a general level of panic, particularly out of the Western countries, about where are we going to source our gallium from. And gallium is an important element that goes into semiconductors and is part of that whole technology race around the world. So, it sort of got real potential to become a strategic mineral. Market size isn't huge. It's not a massive global market, but at the same time, it's one of those things that could become really geopolitically important. So we were just looking through the assays, and 3 or 4 holes that were assayed were really good. So we thought, okay, well that's really interesting. And now we've commissioned a further assay suite across the rest of the holes. So we'll start getting those results in soon, and we expect that we'll have elevated gallium through quite a large part of the resource area. So gallium's one of them, but the slightly bigger question for us is, how do these other things play into it as well, which is scandium, titanium, HPA. All those things have potential to drive the revenue side of the process. So for us, it's a combination of, it's rare earths fundamentally, but what other side products are you producing? And is it HPA, which is going to attract a high price, but might have associated, capex that's reasonably high. So all these things that we're considering internally, there'll be a trade-off between getting extra revenue versus what you need to spend to develop that process. But I do think, what's really interesting for us is we have that optionality. So it's rare earths with a side of high-value minerals, and it might be HPA, scandium, titanium, or gallium that we sort of add into the mix in any combination. We haven't drawn any conclusions yet, but it's certainly something that we're looking at because of that unique nature of the amphibolite underlying Newmont. Those elements have been enriched, and so that's what we're considering at the moment.
Showing my age when I talk about this is that in the diamond industry, we always say that. I was told that to look at. There's always every mine has something different that makes it plausible, because some of the mines down in Africa is the size of the stone. Argyle was actually the pinks. Ellendale was the yellows. Merlin diamond, which is a small play, was actually the quality of the whites, fetching a big price. So I think in every industry, more so the rare earths and the lithiums, because you got the spodumene rich or the petalite rich, and that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I guess in this way, in a lot of porphyries, is about the byproducts, like whether that can bring your cost of production down.
Correct.
Some of these are running at positive cash flow, negative costs.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Correct.
And I think that's why I just feel like when we very first spoke, when I first talked to you, the West Cobar story was that I found amphibolite, because everyone's granites and everyone's granitoids, and you've got all these byproducts. You've got a HPA resource sitting on top, which is half decent anyway.
Correct. Yeah.
And we've been talking about the byproducts. Do you think the amphibolite is a dark horse? I mean, we're not saying it is. I'm just saying that something is different here, very different, because Samso has been talking to lots of guys, and there's the AR3 story is the limestone. You've got the granitoids. You've got U's, as I mentioned before. I've talked to people who mentioned that they're in sediments, so there is very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that you guys got something unique?
Yeah.
In terms of the geology, not because you guys chose it just happened that way, right?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think you're spot on. What we're finding is, it's interesting for us because we've got a contrast between Newmont and O'Connor. O'Connor is over the granite, Newmont's over the amphibolite. So we're seeing different mineralogy between the projects, and definitely Newmont has got that enrichment, through the amphibolite of all these co-products that are in higher concentrations and higher grades, and slightly different leaching responses. So it's a bit of a learning process, but so far everything that we're seeing out of Newmont indicates that it's unique, and it's potentially got some higher value mix in there. So yeah, I think you're right. The geology is very interesting for Newmont and different to the others.
Yeah, I mean, I asked you guys out there to have a look at the video I did with Diana Zivak from the Geological Survey of South Australia, where she talks about this kind of stuff, and she did mention that every deposit out there, because it's so new and so different, has to be taken in its own, because everything's different, and we're learning as we go, right? We're becoming experts day by day.
Yeah.
Perfect example is me, right? So the gallium is there, but do you think that restriction is short term from China? Do you think it's just a short term uplift for stories like yourself?
Look, I think My belief is that the supply of critical minerals will be more politicized as we go forward rather than less. I think individual bans might be temporary and they might not last forever, but that desire to diversify supply will only get stronger between countries. And I think we're seeing bits of that already. The Western countries want to have their own supply from friendly Western countries, and particularly with things like gallium, it's part of that tech race or tech war, between the East and the West, and I think the West, particularly the US, feels, they feel like they're at the forefront of technology race, and they've got the semiconductor manufacturing and the associated technology. They're kind of that's one of their strengths, and so for them to feel threatened with supply of the raw materials to drive that race, I think even if this ban, the export ban from China was removed, I think it would have created enough fear that these kind of countries and companies will be looking for sources outside the traditional supply chains, and I think there's very real possibility of premiums to prices being applied in order to secure that supply. So for me, this is kind of the step in that that geopolitical sort of race to secure the critical minerals.
Yeah, I think that semiconductor race is very well flying under the radar, but I think the rest of the world knows that there's a shortage of it, and I think it's a real thing. People could go to war for this kind of stuff, right? And I think that it's an early sign from China that they're seeing that tightness coming in.
Yeah.
And you're right, that the West is feeling that they're already building, trying to encourage the Taiwanese semiconductor industry to diversify out of there, in case something happens, right?
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. The people don't do that.
Yeah.
And people don't. They take it seriously enough to actually physically do it. That's my point.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So
absolutely.
I think you're right. I mean, there is a element of longevity, if that's a word to be used. But anyway, it kind of makes me feel like Salazar's system is may benefit from this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Which leads to, I guess, today you had a release with your Nevada lithium project. Share with us that release.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited to have Nevada as a probably the secondary arm to the story. It's different in that it's exploration. Obviously we've discovered Newmont, we've discovered O'Connor, and we're now progressing those projects on a different kind of scale. Whereas Nevada is kind of greenfields. It's exploration, it's proving a concept, and there's a huge amount of upside there. It's in an area where you've got one of the world's best jurisdictions, so the regulation is good, the services are good. One of the best things is you're down the road from the gigafactories, so you've got these end users of lithium that really want that critical mineral in their backyard. You've got the Inflation Reduction Act from Biden, who is encouraging all that stuff, and that's something we'll look at as we develop our US story. But for us, really exciting announcement today in that we've got two areas of claims, which is the what they call the tenements in the US. They're the claims, and in these two areas, we have just scheduled a 11 RC drill program. So we're doing 11 holes across those two, and it's proving the concept. What we want to do is, we've been out in the field, we've done some reconnaissance mapping. We're confident that the Seabird Formation extends into those areas. The Seabird Formation is the claystone that hosts the lithium mineralization there. So, it's actually not too dissimilar to what we're doing down at Esperance with Newmont. We're looking for those clays that have elevated minerals, but in this case, we're looking for lithium. And the reason we're looking in that particular area is because there are some big deposits that have been discovered and worked on over the last few years. Right in that vicinity of where we are. In particular, we've got that one Montezuma well, which is a couple of k's from a really big resource to the east, and a couple of k's from a really big resource to the south. So if you look at the geological mapping and you look at how the caldera is formed, and it's not hard to imagine that the clay formations extend into where we are, and that's why we're really excited about this drilling campaign. So we'll put 5 holes into that one, and what we're hoping for is a nice big intercept of elevated lithium mineralization. That'll be the start for proving that spot works. We'll do the same at Big Smoky Valley, which is the second holding just to the southwest. And this is our maiden kind of voyage there. The interesting part again is we're surrounded by some big companies there. So I think there's potential where if we have success, we can see a pathway to becoming a much bigger company. Some of these guys around Montezuma Well, I mentioned those two resources. They're capped at 400, 500, 600 million in terms of market cap based on those resources. So there's good upside there, and I think we've got what we'd really like to do is prove the concept up the way we hope it'll prove up, and then develop a bigger footprint in Nevada as well.
The next sort of topic that I think everybody who follows you is your met news, and any new stuff coming out.
Yeah, so going back to Newmont and O'Connor, we've got an ongoing program with ANSTO in particular. So you would have seen the announcement a month or so ago from the sort of phase 1 met results, which was extremely encouraging. We're in the sort of we're very advanced stages of phase 2 at the moment, which is optimizing some of those conditions. So looking at lower acid concentrations, different time in solution, a number of other factors to try and optimize. So that is drawing to an advanced stage, and we expect to have some news out on that in the near term. And then we'll do a bit more variability testing. So we'll look at a wide range of holes around the deposit just to make sure we understand, does this bit respond differently to these bits that we've already tested? So the variability will come next, and then we'll look at producing, potentially a carbonate. What would a product look like? So it's an ongoing MET program that we got with ANSTO, with ongoing news flow for the next few months. And at the moment it's all looking very encouraging. In addition, we've got a beneficiation program ongoing. So we're looking at what can we do on the front end to beneficiate, and that's a process that has potential. There's a number of different things that are being trialed to try and increase the grade on the front end. So whether we have success or not, I don't know, but there's a number of really leading edge institutions looking at that for us, which could change the game for us as well.
That seems to be the common trend in companies like yourself. Obviously, Samso has become a rare earth channel, a clear rare earth channel.
Yeah, you're a guru.
That seems to be the common thing, right? Is trying to do the front end and get the beneficiation, because, let's say yours was 1,200. If you were able to move it up to 2,000s,
correct,
reduce the number,
correct,
you're cooking with gas.
Correct. Yeah, it's all about the economics, right? So the higher you get the front end grade, the better. And it comes back into that what we were discussing before, the co-products. It's another way to boost the economics potentially. So it's all these factors that we've got. We've kind of got it. Just getting a clear path forward for us is one of the priorities. But we've got all the right ingredients in the mix.
Okay, well, settle news flow. I'm thinking pretty much. Did we miss out anything for news flow?
Look, we've still got reconnaissance work going on in the Northern Territory, so that's really greenfields, looking for lithium. The geology is interesting. The guys are in the field. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a bit of luck. But that's what we're looking for there is obviously pegmatites with lithium. And we'll probably look at one, maybe another hole in our copper play in New South Wales just to round that out. So that's something we've alluded to in the market before, and that's something we're working on at the moment.
Copper's always good.
Yeah, copper's one of those things. It's the fundamentals for copper are really good, and for us it sort of fits into that battery metal thematic. So it certainly would be nice to have a good hit of copper. Yeah.
Just don't forget that lots of secondary, third-tier projects became the darlings of a company. Just don't forget about them.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We evaluate things from a technical merit. That's got to make sense technically, and at the moment we feel like there's some good potential there. So we'll give it a shot.
Your last thoughts, where can we see future value adding? I know we touched on a lot of these things here, it's the moment you sell your soul to the guys on the camera.
Yeah, well, I think thanks, Noel, for putting it in such black and white terms. I think the way I look at it is we've got a really good cornerstone asset. We're one of the leading rare earth clay deposits in Australia, and we've got some exploration catalysts. We've got some value drivers on the lithium in Nevada, NT. We'll have a look at this copper play as well. So, those things all have potential to re-rate us. And I think at the moment we've been hit with sort of headwinds from the macro. The rare earth prices have come down, and a lot of the rare earth players' share prices have come down. So I think we've suffered that as well. But my view is that'll turn, and I think we're very well positioned to take advantage of that. So, I just think for the current market cap and the current EV we've got a lot of good irons in the fire to really ramp this company up, and that's certainly what we're trying to do.
Okay, I have to say that the Salazar stories. I think there's a dark horse popping up everywhere. Till the next time, I guess Samso's now unofficially become the Rare Earth channel by luck.
So, maybe by skill. No?
I'll say that out off camera. But thank you for your time. But you can't go away without coffee. Kick. I have to thank Florence Drummond for organising that. Kick is an organisation of I think 2 or 3 First Nation business in our industry, and I have tasted the coffee. It's very good. So thank you, and Matt, thank you, and till next time.
Thanks very much, Noel. Yeah, thanks for having me, and definitely appreciate the coffee.